absolutely illustrious panel with some remarkable gentlemen who have found time to be with us. I really acknowledge their time and appreciate their presence here today. But before we move to all of them and have their words and thoughts for us, as innovation really becomes the core gene with which the world can solve a lot of its problems, the focus here today is on a young lad, Aditya Pachpande. He's a beautiful young talent out of Pune, a lovely city, perhaps a city that in itself kind of is a beautiful breeding ground for innovation. Historically, it is known to be a city for education and educational excellence in India. So it is no surprise that he comes from a city like that. India, of course, has been very well known over the centuries to be a nation of innovation. We probably lost the plot for a few years, but we certainly seem to be getting back there. And young Aditya, rather than sitting back and looking and waiting for someone else to solve the problems, has himself been, in the context of one of our illustrious speakers, probably been tinkering around at his house. And in all the tinkering that he's been doing, he's been creating a lot of solutions for this world. Most importantly, perhaps appropriately, on Gandhi Jayanti, when we salute the Mahatma, he's probably been in his own way working on frugal innovation or Gandhian innovation, if I may call it that, producing a Suraksha box for less than 500 rupees, which is truly remarkable. But what I really appreciate about a youngster like this, and these youngsters are sometimes gracious in calling you a mentor, and yes, I have been associated with him. Sometimes it's more a matter of confusion than clarity for people like me when I talk to such youngsters, because you often wonder who's mentoring whom. And these kids seem to be so fearless in what they offer you as advice. So you're often on the receiving end than the advocacy side. Truly wonderful to have a youngster like him. His clarity, his humility, his vision for solving problems of the world strikes me, because I think many of us were nowhere close to this kind of clarity when we were back in school. And the more important part is he has decided not to focus his future on what he does, but to bring in far more children, students from college, the youth, to create a movement for innovation. I think that is important. Individually, we can solve problem A and B, but if we collectively come together, we can solve problem C, D, E, F, G, H. And that, I think, is what Aditya intends to do, of course, with the support of a lot of us. And the moment the intent of a youngster is right, it's really nice to see a galaxy of people willing to give their time and their precious advice to all of us. So gratitude to everyone who's chipping in for a wonderful start to a great future. But for now, to a young boy who's really put this thing together, I don't think he's ever written so many invitation mails in his life as he has for the NEXTGEN INNOV8, conclave, and he's been doing that religiously. That's like serious homework that he's been doing. But for now, a young little lad from Pune leads the way for us. Can I request him to share his thoughts before we move on with the deliberations? All yours, Aditya. Welcome to you as well.
Thank you so much for introducing me. So, good morning, everyone. I hope you all are having, I hope you all and your loved ones are doing well. First of all, wishes to all of you on Gandhi Jayanti and salutations to great Mahatma Gandhi. A warm welcome to all of our dignitaries, all those of you who are watching from across the world, ladies and gentlemen, and especially the young minds. Thank you so much for accepting my invitation and being here today. I am so happy and blessed to see so many well-wishers and supporters for this mission. In a world deluged with irrelevant information, clarity is power, says one thinker. If there is one power to absolve the world of problems, it's called innovation, says another. I am excited and delighted to humbly share the news of the launch of my startup NEXTGEN INNOV8, which is an enterprise for young innovators as well as change makers of the world. WSIS is the first initiative by NEXTGEN Innovate, and Suraksha Box is the first social initiative by NEXTGEN Innovate. The theme of this summit is to deliberate on how to provide an ecosystem to nurture innovators, change makers, and thought leaders of tomorrow. The World Student Innovation Summit is a one of its kind student-led platform that seeks to create an innovation movement across the world. We want to engage young minds and celebrate the ones who have innovated in any field. WSIS seeks to provide students, teachers, and educators a platform to nurture innovators, change makers, and thought leaders of tomorrow. The summit aims to inspire and encourage students to ask questions, to be creative, to think outside the box, and now to think outside the building, using various innovation tools and techniques like design thinking to come up with unique solutions and ideas to problems and issues faced by families and communities, and even solve global issues and make the world a better place. The global pandemic of COVID 19 has brought in a lot of hardships for human lives and has definitely disrupted the day to day lives of the entire population. One such hardship that we all have been currently facing in our household is how to sterilize the vegetables and groceries and parcels that we purchase from outside. Well, our household warriors have been using various methods to sterilize veggies and groceries, like exposing them under sunlight, or even washing them with baking soda and potassium permanganate, or even using sanitizers. However, these methods are not completely hygienic and they have their own drawbacks. These are very tedious, time consuming, and waste a lot of water and other chemicals. As a responsible citizen and young innovator, I, Aditya Pachpande, student of grade 9 Indus International School, Pune, have designed a well thought out solution that can be utilized by household members to sterilize items that we buy from outside. Extreme times have always led humans to be more creative and come up with unique and innovative solutions. Here I present a do-it-yourself UVC light sterilization box, an easy sterilization method developed from regular materials that you can build at home during the lockdown. The Suraksha box can be used to sterilize vegetables, groceries, and everyday items and everyday items without using chemicals to protect yourself from all kinds of viruses, bacteria, and fungi. I have received the publication of the patent and I'm getting rave reviews from top scientists from CSIR and ICMR on the simplicity and scalability of the solution. I have also received a Government of India certification by CSIR and ICMR Approved Lab for this product. I feel that kids are much more innovative than adults. Being a kid, I have come up with a solution which, when implemented, created huge impact. I believe that every other kid out there has this potential to come up with unique solutions to the world's biggest problems. They just need the right guidance, resources, and an ecosystem. And this is exactly what NextGen Innovate will do. I was always inspired by Mahatma Gandhi's quote, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." And that had inspired me to change and innovate during this crisis. Many people asked me if I would commercialize the product when I received the patent publication. And I said straight away, no. This is not a time to do business, but rather to help others to get a chance to get back on their feet. So I decided to start and make this a social non-profit venture. Friends, what is important is not what I have created, but how it can help the needy. So please join our mission 15.1K to donate 15,100 COVID-19 Suraksha Box kits to the underprivileged and schools. On the 151st birthday of Mahatma Gandhiji, let's pledge for a safe environment and help each other to protect ourselves from this deadly virus. This Diwali, give the gift of Suraksha to a loved one, to an employee, to a customer, and together let's help prevent the spread of the virus and come out of this crisis. Because in every crisis lies an opportunity. Not only imagine the future, but create it. In words of Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji, the role of education is to prepare students for the future jobs and careers. I have been speaking about the need for teaching innovation since many years now, and I am very happy to see now innovation is the main focus of the new education policy 2020 of India. NextGen Innovate will be the right platform for education institutions to use for this purpose. Should I continue?
Yeah, Aditya, please go ahead.
Okay. We want to create an innovation movement and give students as well as teachers a voice, a platform for sharing, improving, innovating, creating innovations which will help to solve various problems and share that with the rest of the world. We also want to teach students all around the world various important skills through NextGen Innovate clubs and various other activities such as competitions, events, talks, which will help to set up, which we will set up in all the schools around the world. And we will also sell various Alexa and innovation kits through that. The power of innovation should flourish in every child as well as teachers in the world so that they can come up with various creative ideas and solutions to the problems faced by their families and communities, even for global issues, and let us together make the world a better place. My mission is to set up innovation clubs in every possible school in the world, and my vision is to teach children various important skills like critical thinking, creativity, innovation, problem solving skills to prepare them for the coming future. Let us all have a wonderful day learning from a galaxy of star-studded experts as we commit ourselves to innovations that will help to create a better world. Thank you.
Lovely, Aditya. I think that was truly remarkable. Sometimes when I listen to youngsters like this, I just close my eyes and thank the Lord that I was born many years before such youngsters. Imagine the kind of competition and challenges we would have had we had to study with students like Aditya. My God, it's a very different world. I can see some of my panelists who are working with children smiling because truly we've come a long way as a human race. And the kind of confidence and clarity that our children today in schools have is truly humbling and remarkable. I think as adults, the simple responsibility we carry is to harness that and to provide them the right platform and path. If we do that, and like Mr. Ramanan would say, if we don't tinker and allow them to tinker, I think we will be better off in the future. But I'm going to quickly take 30 seconds to introduce three extremely distinguished people before getting on the first of them to share his views. We have with us here today, all the way from Austria, in a lovely, beautiful city called Linz. And I missed visiting that by a fraction once. I'm yet to go there in my life, but I will. Is a professor of marketing from the University of Applied Sciences in Austria, is Dr. Andreas. Truly appreciate you joining us, Dr. Andreas. Your presence is truly valued. Thank you and welcome to the World Innovation Summit for 2020 as we kick off today. The second gentleman with us is a very, very important personality in India. He's someone who's really carrying the movement of innovation on his shoulders in terms of the future, because what he is doing is like perhaps fostering one of the nation's largest incubation labs for innovation. And it's called the Atal Innovation Mission. He's the mission director. He's been extremely passionate over the last decade in the way small schools in small, tiny towns today have tinkering labs, which are essentially making children think and think differently. It's a fascinating mission. We'll hear more from him. But Mr. Ramanan Ramanathan, thank you so much for taking time off and joining us here today on a hectic day. Gandhi Jayanti is usually a tough day for people like him because he must be hopping between multiple programs, but truly appreciate his commitment to a student-led program today. Wonderful. On a day when we as India celebrate the life of Mahatma Gandhi, the inspiration of the Mahatma, we would never be able to move that sort of movement forward without South Africa. These are two nations which rose in the world with one iconic inspiration, Mahatma Gandhi. With us here today is a gentleman who has been a phenomenal academic, an outstanding orator, a very passionate person for the progress of the world and for the world to be a happier and a more solution-oriented space. He is the Deputy CEO of Research and Innovation Support and Advancement at the National Research Foundation in South Africa. He is a Harvard alumnus, a man with enough amount of accomplishments to his life. He has been a person who has done enormous amount of work across the world, published numerous papers. He has been someone who's been part of more than 60 primary research papers, including several highly cited works and peer-reviewed international journals. He's also an honorary research professor at the UKZN and DUT in South Africa. He is also a recipient of numerous awards, a very popular speaker at various conferences. I've had the fortune and privilege of sitting in the same classroom with him for periods of time when we studied together for a year. And it's truly, truly a pleasure and honor and perhaps extremely appropriate here today to have our first speaker to set the whole ball rolling for WSIS here today as NEXTGEN Innovate unfolds itself. The Deputy Chief Executive Officer of RISA of the NRF from South Africa, Dr. Ganson Pillay. Dr. Pillay, a huge welcome to you. Thank you so much for taking your time off. I do know that you're hard pressed on time today. Two nations would be on overdrive on Gandhi Jayanti, us and you. I can completely understand that, but truly wonderful that you accommodated the time to be with us and especially for young Aditya. All yours, Dr. Pillay. We'd love to hear from you as we unfold this wonderful day with millions of youngsters who are going to be watching this today and in the days ahead. All yours, Dr. Pillay. Welcome to you.
Thank you, Giri. Distinguished guests, and that includes each and every one of you, a greeting from South Africa, warm greeting from South Africa. It is an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege to make a few remarks at this inaugural World Student Innovation Summit. May I also take this opportunity to congratulate Master Aditya Pachpande for developing his novel UVC sterilization product, the Suraksha Box, which has been approved by the CSIR of India. Aditya, my personal congratulations. It was most inspiring to listen to you. And when I hear your ideas, I am comfortable in the thought that the future is safe. Ladies and gentlemen, it is significant that this summit is being held on the birthday of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, affectionately known as Gandhiji or Bapu. Incidentally, Gandhiji was assassinated on the day and month of my birthday, so it'll always be remembered. It is also appropriate that this summit is anchored by one of Gandhiji's well-known quotations, namely, be the change you want to see in the world. The quotation of our late former President Nelson Mandela would also be most appropriate on this occasion as well. And I quote, "Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world." As Giri has mentioned, South Africa and India have a very special relationship, a bond that spans decades. For the information of those who've joined us, Indians first arrived in South Africa in 1860, some 160 years ago, to work as indentured laborers on the sugarcane plantations. You may also be aware of the system of apartheid, or separate development, under which we suffered. The system sought to divide and rule the various race groups in South Africa. It was the only system in the world that legally and through the country's constitution discriminated against its citizens based on the color of their skin. In April 1893, Gandhiji, aged 23, set sail for South Africa to serve as legal counsel to a merchant, Dada Abdullah. Immediately upon arriving in South Africa, Gandhiji faced discrimination because of his skin color and heritage, like all people of color. In June, Dada Abdullah asked him to take a rail trip to Pretoria, Transvaal, a journey which first took Gandhiji to Pietermaritzburg, Natal, which is the province that I live in. Unfortunately, Gandhiji was thrown off a train at the Pietermaritzburg railway station in South Africa after a white man objected to him traveling in the first-class coach. Gandhiji had refused to move out of the first-class section. He spent nearly 21 years in South Africa, where he practiced law, developed his political views and ethical frameworks. Gandhiji organized Indian resistance, fought anti-Indian legislation in the courts, and led large protests against the colonial government. Along the way, he developed a public persona and a philosophy of truth-focused, non-violent, non-cooperation he called Satyagraha. Gandhiji also considered himself very much an Indian and a South African. In 1899, he became the first honorary secretary of the newly formed Natal Indian Congress. In July 1914, Gandhiji sailed for England en route to India, leaving South Africa for the last time. What we, as South Africans of Indian descent, inherited, firstly through our origins in our motherland, is a culture. And secondly, through Gandhi's teaching, is a liberation struggle. And our motto has been liberation through education, not revolution, passive resistance. We also learned the power of nonviolence and the importance of human rights and human dignity. Like Gandhiji, our late former President Nelson Mandela abhorred discrimination. In his treason trial, which carried the death penalty, he stated, "I have fought against white domination, and I've fought against black domination. I've cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if needs be, it is an ideal for which I'm prepared to die." Distinguished guests, it is against this backdrop and on the occasion of Gandhiji's birthday that this inaugural Student Innovation Summit is being held. It is about the resilience of the human spirits, the ability to innovate in the face of challenges facing humankind like COVID-19. It is about thinking positively and being able to turn adversity into opportunity. Lastly, allow me to leave you with some take-home messages, because I see that there are a number of individuals that have joined us for today's summit, and I'd like to express my sincere appreciation for them taking time to be able to share some of the thoughts that I have. Firstly, and this is largely for the political front, it is critical that the country has the political will and resources to invest in research. Investment in research is an economic driver, and it what catapults a country into greatness economically. Secondly, an enabling environment must be created by our academics and researchers. And I want to thank all those academics and researchers who are listening in and whose job touches the lives of millions of people without them even knowing it. Passion, thirst, enthusiasm, hunger for knowledge cannot be taught, but it can be conveyed through human interactions. Great teachers not only ignite the minds of students, but also touch their souls to inspire them further. And most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, I have a message for the students, our next generation of researchers. You will find, dear students, that having the right attitude, a curious mind, and the courage to walk paths that have never been treaded before may lead to wonderful discoveries. You will learn that when you get on top of a hill, the same scenery at ground level looks different. You will also learn that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. And like Aditya, your future depends on the following. It's not about your ability to think inside of the box or outside of the box, but rather to innovate without the box. And as you can see, Aditya's innovation outside, without a box, has actually produced a box, the Suraksha Box. Lastly, I want to leave the students with the following words. In the words of Nelson Mandela, and I quote, "It always seems impossible until it's done." You need to interweave your passion for learning into the fabric of what is available in society and how you can turn these adversities into opportunities. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, great and impactful research knows no borders or boundaries. Collaboration is important, and it is a catalyst for information. Team stands for together everyone achieves more. Therefore, collaboration is important. In order to advance science, technology, and innovation, especially in emerging economies and developing countries, a quadruple helix approach is required. That is a collective effort by government, academia, business and industry, and civil society. Sincere thanks for your attention, and I wish you well with the summit, and my very best wishes to Aditya and all his fellow students. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pillai. That was truly profound. And I think it was perhaps really appropriate that we brought in this camaraderie between India and South Africa on this extremely important day of Gandhi Jayanti. Two fantastic nations, cultures, and so right the way you said it. Well, since you are having me play moderator here today with these panelists, you will find a few trivia questions coming in probably, or trivia as a quiz master that I will throw in for you. Dr. Ganson rightly spoke about passive resistance. Do you know Mahatma Gandhi actually ran soccer clubs in South Africa, and the name of the soccer club was Passive Resistors. His football club was actually called Passive Resistors, and they used to play football in a very different manner, where they would probably lose 21-0 and 22-0, but they would play clean football, and therefore people would come to those grounds to watch his team lose for a change. And there he would speak about nonviolence and his philosophy of, like how Dr. Ganson rightly said, changing the world in the right way and not necessarily the wrong ways. But thank you so much, Dr. Pillai. We would want you to hang on for a while because we would certainly have some questions to ask the three of you once you have shared your initial key thoughts. But let me quickly move on to our second speaker from Africa to Europe. And truly wonderful to have with us a professor all the way from Austria, from Linz, like I said. For those of you who've been joining in a little late, we have with us a professor of marketing from the University of Applied Sciences at Upper Austria. He's a wonderful gentleman. His key areas of interest range from organizational buying behavior to negotiation, to most importantly, emotional and social competencies in sales and sales management, which I really believe is the way the world is drifting forward, because it's no longer about sales, but it's about the emotional and social competence involved in a sale, which is when the sale sticks. And I'm sure Dr. Andreas would have far more to share with us on that. But the key and undertone to any emotion is innovation. And that's one of the reasons we believed Dr. Andreas would be a very important person to speak, to even give a marketing perspective to innovation and the need for it. So here today at the important summit by students for students, truly a pleasure and an honor to welcome as our next keynote speaker, Dr. Andreas Zachner from Austria. Over to you, Dr. Andreas. Welcome to this wonderful day and this wonderful initiative. by Aditya.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, Doctor.
Very good, very good. So you see in the back of myself there is a window, and it's about 7:30 now in Austria. So the sun is rising. We will have a very nice day today. And similar to the sun rising behind me, if you look out of my window, the sun is also rising in my heart if I see how professional and elegant at the same time this summit has started. Aditi, thank you so very much for this kind and smart introduction. And I'm absolutely fascinated how you manage to create such a noise about such an important topic with now 436 attendees at this conference. Aditya, I did not meet you in person, but I heard a lot of you, and I was tracking, if not stalking your records on Facebook and seeing what you achieve. And I very much appreciate this route that you're going, but I will talk about that later. Yeah, thank you very much for the introduction, Mr. Chairman, and also welcome, dear Honorable Ministers. Sandeep, I'm very happy to meet you again. Dear participants, students, I hope there are also parents, because the parents, aside from the students, are one of those facilitators of the fire and the energy of young people when it comes to sparkling innovations. In 1954, excuse me, Peter Drucker, an Austrian scientist in management, said in his book that's called The Practice of Management, there is only one valid definition of a business purpose. And I'm referring not only to for-profit businesses, but also for non-for-profit businesses. And he says the only purpose is to create a customer or a beneficial. And because it is the purpose of any business to create a customer that is happy, any business enterprise has two and only two functions. And this is marketing and innovation. Marketing and innovation are the two entrepreneurial functions that the company possesses. All the other functions are sorted around these two core functions to facilitate entrepreneurship, innovation, to create things, and marketing to tell about the benefits of these things. I'm very, very happy to be part of this session today and to participate in this World Student Innovation Summit presented by the NEXTGEN INNOV8 in association with Sandeep's ASMA. I said already, my relationship to you, Sandeep, dates back, I guess, 2 years when you visited us in Austria, and I very much remember this beautiful day and the discussions we had. Since then, we are planning a visit to your place to manifest our ideas, but unfortunately, in the last month, the current situation is not really a facilitator of these ideas. But we will manage to meet, and we will work together to put our ideas into practice. If the theme of this conference is to encourage students to ignite the innovative spark and build a pioneering society, as I read, then I would argue that the thought leaders of tomorrow are most likely already in this virtual room among the 423 participants. The thought leaders are already there, but maybe they don't know yet, and we don't know. And our task is to nurture them, grow them, and allow them to unfold their capacity and talent. I see this as a main core task of a university education. I would like to share a very little story with you that came across me just 2 weeks ago. There is a young man that was studying at our university, and his name is Shashwat Tiwari. He is from India. He studied with us and he completed some courses in entrepreneurship and starting up a business. Shashwat's family is growing potatoes in their hometown in India since many generations. He found during his studies here and in contact with his parents that potatoes, which are sold without packaging in times of COVID-19, might provide a potential harm to the health of the consumers because of hygiene issues. Isn't that a pretty similar thought or chain of thought like you had, Aditya? So he had the idea in one of our courses of creating an eco-friendly and at the same time safe packaging for his potatoes, which he now promotes and sells successfully through different sales channels to his clients back in India. The interesting thing is that his business model starts from one of the most basic products that we are having, namely a simple potato. So I'm an advocate of innovation that not necessarily has to be high-tech. Low-tech or even no-tech innovation might provide the same value as long as it fulfills the needs of the beneficiaries and it helps other people. What he said, we are still in discussion with him and he ramped up his business already back at home. He said, if I hadn't the chance to try and test my idea in the labs at the university and to collect especially my colleagues and my professors' feedback, I would perhaps not have dared to realize them after my return. I believe this is the only task of a university when it comes to help bright young talents to become successful. Because what we provided was nothing else than maybe the spark and the ignition, the fuel and the energy of Shashwat Tiwari was already there, namely in himself. My university is strongly committed to entrepreneurship and innovation. We run several undergraduate and graduate study programs. We run incubators and transfer centers around innovation and entrepreneurship in engineering, medical technology, computer science, and in business. Aditya, we would be very happy if we could be part of your network and your initiative, and if you would consider including my institution, be part of your international innovation network. We do have already a large community of clever Indian students at our 4 schools. So I'm addressing you now, the more than 400 listening students. In my country, might it be as small as it is, there is always space for talented, inspired, and brave young people. Feel free to connect to us and to take the burden of traveling to another place, hopefully Austria. Innovation and innovators take risks, and they do them not normal. And if I may address the parents, if there are any in the audience, we perfectly know that Europe is far away from you, but you can trust that we take care of your daughter and your son, and we provide them a safe, comfortable, and inspiring home base in our country. Maybe there are some company representatives in the audience. And to those, I would say that I believe, and I strongly believe, that close industry-university ties are key to success in innovation. Together, the universities and the industry can create the innovation. But we need the industry to manifest products and services out of those ideas and to spread them to the beneficials. So if you are interested to establish ties with us, we are most likely open to that. Lastly, dear Aditya, I would like to refer to you personally now, and I would like to congratulate you for your achievements which you have accomplished already at your very young age. I have a 16-year-old son who just recently has launched an app that facilitates student-to-student tutoring in times of homeschooling, and I know quite well about the work, the pain, the struggling, and also the enthusiasm that is required to perform a career as you are performing. My son sees you as an idol of how to be a great entrepreneur. I would like to convey his best greetings to you, Sandeep. You know him already. In innovation management, Aditya, we talk about the relationship between three things, namely discovery, invention, and then innovation. So you perform a role model of combining these three elements because you took a discovery which was existing, namely that the natural phenomenon of UV light that kills bacteria. That is something that we know. You took that and turned it to an invention in your Suraksha box. But you did not stop. You transformed this invention towards an innovation. How do we do that? You apply managerial and social processes through which you bring it into practice and you create impact and benefit, because only then we can call it an innovation. By promoting your idea, also through this conference, you manage your innovation to find a client and a customer. And this leads me to my concluding words. I heard that one goal of this summit is to create momentum and impact for Aditya's idea, which is, let me say, a potentially life-saving idea. So participants, please feel encouraged to pledge to join this innovation movement of NEXTGEN INNOV8 and the mission of supplying this 15.1K Suraksha kits to needy families and school. Let me close with the saying of Milton Berle, a famous American comedian and actor, who said, "If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door. And if it knocks, then let it in." Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Andres. Very, very profound words from you, and truly beautiful to see that view behind you as the sun rises in Europe, and innovative as you are in your approach to marketing. It's really nice to see that dashboard behind you with all those innovative slips which are stuck up there, and that's nice. There's a beautiful background as well. Truly appreciate your time. We really woke you up early in the morning today, but that's the kind of commitment the world requires from people like you to foster a movement of innovation. And before I move on to Mr. Ramanan Ramanathan, who is our next keynote speaker, and he will be truly delighted and happy to be at a forum like this, because he would probably see today as a result of something he's been trying to foster with his team for over a decade now in India. Bring in a mindset of thinking. Could not have been a better day. But before I get him to speak, I'm equally delighted to have another person extremely important for India, especially as a pivot to innovation translating into action. While I would see someone like Mr. Ramanan as the seed of innovation in India, I would see this gentleman as the person who helps the fostering of that seed in India is Dr. Anil Sahasrabuddhe. He is someone the nation looks up to. He is someone who has been a phenomenal leader in education for our country, spearheading the AICTE. We will bring him on next, but sir, truly appreciate your time. It's a body that has really brought in a lot of focus, purpose, and future focus in many ways through institutions which are part of the AICTE, and most importantly, as someone who's closely associated with academia, as probably the moon is to the earth, I may comment in that capacity. it's brought in standardization across the country. And I think that's a phenomenal achievement of AICTE. They've brought in standards which are common yardsticks today as benchmarks for this nation. And that's something that Dr. Andre and Dr. Pillay in South Africa and Austria would like to hear. But moving on, ladies and gentlemen, we have someone who has always been of the belief, like Aditya mentioned, that innovation and kids go hand in hand. He came with a background where he probably never thought he would handle kids. His only stint with kids was probably with me when we started some quizzes when he was back then in TCS. He then went on to spearhead an iconic company in India, CMC, went on to become its managing director, and then decided that he had to do something far larger for the country and became the mission director for the Atal Innovation Mission. It's a flagship initiative under the Prime Minister and the Office of the Prime Minister of this nation. So it's extremely important. And to all of us panelists here today, while we've got 400 odd people on the link here, we've got thousands watching this on the multiple Facebooks that we're streaming it. So we've got huge number of people listening in today. So we've got a massive audience. In fact, we've got a student audience of more than about 1.6 lakh students across platforms who are actually tuning in. So it's a very, very large scale audience that is listening in. And I think it's truly a pleasure, a privilege, and an honor where the National Institute for Transforming India, which we call as Niti Aayog, under which the Atal Innovation Mission has really been doing phenomenal work. Two areas that they focus on, and I do not want to take too much of his time. One, of course, is innovation. And the second thing I really appreciate is entrepreneurship initiatives, because innovation is incomplete if it does not translate into something, which is probably where Mr. Ramanan and Dr. Sahasrabuddhe come hand in hand. He fosters entrepreneurship to take institutions, to create individuals who can really create enterprise, while Ramanan and his team really foster that seed in schools. But ladies and gentlemen, on a day like this, when we salute the Mahatma, it is truly my pleasure and privilege to welcome to address this huge gathering that is gathering like on a Mahatma Gandhi's birthday to perhaps celebrate his birthday and innovation. Sri Ramanathan Ramanan, the Mission Director and Additional Secretary of Niti Aayog, the Atal Innovation Mission Director. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ramanan. Thank you so much, sir. Truly a delight that you took time off for young Aditya and his idea and for the World Student Innovation Summit. All yours, sir.
Thank you, Giri, for those generous words. Good morning to everybody who's logged onto the call, in particular to Dr. Sandeep, Aditya, Dr. Sahasrabuddhe, Dr. Andreas, Mr. Rahul Jain, Dr. Pillay, and of course, all young students who are out there, budding innovators upon which the destiny of not only our country depends, but the destiny and the future of the world depends. I am very, very honored and I feel privileged to be part of this, a very important discussion that is going on, deliberations on a topic that is dear to me and to my heart, and on a topic that needs to be deliberated and reflected upon by every one of you who is listening to this. We are indeed living in unprecedented times, the COVID-19 times. A simple virus has paralyzed nations across the world. It has disrupted supply chains. It has created grievous loss of lives and livelihoods. It has created an age of uncertainty. In fact, uncertainty is the only certainty that seems to be there in front of us. And when we live in a very uncertain world, it is appropriate to bring to mind the words of the Mahatma, who said, be the change that you want to see. If you want to be the change that you want to see, you want this uncertainty to end, you want a certain degree and decorum of certainty to come into this world, you are going to be the instruments of change. And the instruments of change and the people who believe that change is possible are normally people who are, as Steve Jobs said, the misfits, the crazy ones, the round peg in the square holes, the people who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world because surprisingly, they do. And that calls and change calls for innovation. As the previous speaker, Dr. Andreas said, you have discovery leading to invention, leading to innovation. And change begins when you start looking at a problem and not complaining about it, but saying, how can I be instrumental in solving this problem? So you have to become a problem solver. To become a problem solver, you have to become an innovator. To become an innovator, you have to know about technology and empowerments that is enabling you to become an innovator and unleash that creativity which is there in you right from birth. And this is why this topic is so very important, because change leads to innovation. A desire for change leads to the betterment of the world. And I therefore compliment Aditya, Aditi, and all the others who are engaged young students. Because my dear young students, you are the people who are going to re-architect this world. You are the people who can boldly imagine about a new world, a world in which your imagination is not without any constraints. You know, as you grow old like me, you start imagining a lot of constraints. That's the problem. You don't imagine solutions. You start imagining constraints and you limit yourself with those constraints. Swami Vivekananda said, if you can arise yourself and ensure that you can become an architect of change in the world because you have that in you, if you are bold enough to be confident about yourself, if you can believe in 1,000 gods and goddesses, but do not have belief in yourself, you are doomed. So first and foremost, I want all the young students who are out there to have extraordinary belief in themselves. Have the belief that you are going to be the instruments of change. You are going to be the future innovators of the world. You are going to be the job creators. You are the people who can think without any boundaries. And therefore, this global event, the World Student Innovation Summit, is a summit without any borders. It is not breaking itself into only this nation can innovate or this segment of society can innovate. It is calling upon every young student across the world to be innovators, to be the change makers. Now, why is innovation and entrepreneurship so very important? What is its role in today's world? Why is it and how is it that students like Aditya and all the others can engage themselves and make an impact to the rest of the world? The reason is very simple. If you look at India, and we are very fortunate to be in India today, and I'm sure the situation is the same in South Africa or in Austria or in any other part of the world. We are living in India with 1.3 billion people. We have 1.4 million schools. We have 10,500 engineering and related institutions. We have 39,000 colleges. We have 150 to 200 million young students who are going to be entering into the workplace over the next 5 to 10 years. We have what they call as a demographic dividend, a dividend which is the envy of many a country, because you represent, my dear students, the youthful energy that any nation has to possess. Any nation will be proud to have, because it is this energy, this enthusiasm, this exuberance, this innovative potential and capability that is there within this country that is going to lead to a better future, not only from an economic point of view, but also from a societal point of view. For we are a large country with a lot of problems. We have tremendously good things going for our country. Like we are one of the fastest growing economies of the world. We have the demographic dividend, as they call. We are also living in a world of technology where change is the only constant. And I'll come back to the point of technology a little later. But at the same time, we in India, my dear students, are having many challenges. We are 1 billion people with 1 million challenges. 22% of our country is still below the poverty line. 44% of our country is agri-economy based. We have 715 districts in our country. We have 600,000 plus villages. We have 8,000 towns and small cities. We have only 8 tier 1 cities. We cannot have the people from all rural India, tier 2, tier 3, the rural and the coastal and the hilly districts, flocking to these 8 tier 1 cities in order to find solace, employment, and fruition of their lives. We need to create thousands of centers of job creation, thousands of centers of innovation. We need more than 200 smart cities in our country. We need every one of the communities in the 600,000 villages to become local hubs of innovation and job creation. And that is why the topic of innovation and entrepreneurship is so very important. And that is why the Atal Innovation Mission has been formed to first and foremost create a culture of innovation in our country. You see, our young students like Aditya and everybody else are all subject, and we have been subject, I have been subject to a world of rote learning. In a world of rote learning, we aspire to get great marks in a university, in the school, go into a good university, get good marks again, go to a university abroad, get good marks again, and then want to join a job, whether it is in Google or IBM or TCS or Wipro and so on. We all want to become job seekers, and that has served us well so far. Our focus on education, our emphasis on that has created a $191 billion ITS industry, which I am a very proud part of. But what has brought us here till now is not going to take us further. What is going to take us further as a country, as a nation, as a world, is where we become problem solvers and not just rote learners. And that is why the Atal Innovation Mission has been launching thousands of tinkering labs across the country, so that young students from grade 6 to grade 12, students like Aditya and Aditi, are able to tinker with the latest of technologies upon which solutions are being created in the rest of the world. The solutions of tomorrow: 3D printing, robotics, IoT devices, miniaturized electronics, augmented virtual reality, artificial intelligence. These are all made available to the young students through do-it-yourself kits. These do-it-yourself kits are entered into these schools through an Atal Tinkering Lab. And the children have an opportunity to look at problems in and around the community and start in small groups, groups of 3 or 4, to be able to create solutions for the problems they see. They become the architects of the change that they want to see. They start living the Gandhian principle of being the change agent, being the change maker, making India a self-reliant India. And the Honorable Prime Minister very beautifully articulated in his clarion call for a self-reliant India, and I guess that is true for any part of the world. When we talk of self-reliance, we are not talking of a selfish India, but a selfless India. An India which not only makes an impact for its own citizens and makes them stand on their own feet, makes them bold and courageous, that they can achieve the potential that is there inside them, that they will be able to create the new India of their dreams. The Atmanirbhar Bharat has 5 pillars. All the 5 pillars have to have innovation, entrepreneurship, and a spirit of great energy and enthusiasm to be able to fulfill the expectations out of those pillars. Let's look at the first pillar, the pillar of demographic dividend. I already talked a lot about that, but how do you ensure that our million young students become job creators and not just job seekers? That is possible when you emphasize on the 5 E's. The first is education. The second is enablement. The third is empowerment. The fourth is energizing through regulatory and incentivizing public-private sector partnerships. And the fifth is creating a vibrant ecosystem across the length and breadth of the country that spurs innovation and job creation. That has to happen if the demographic dividend has to be given its full potential for being able to contribute to the country. So what are we doing for that? We are therefore focusing on the second pillar, the pillar of infrastructure. The pillar of infrastructure means how do you make the latest of not only the physical infrastructure and access to infrastructure possible, but the digital infrastructure and the digital highways, so that our young students, be it in the 715 districts, out of which, remember, 115 are aspirational districts, which means they're at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of access to clean drinking water, access to sanitation, access to affordable housing, access to education, access to healthcare. We have 1 in 3 infant mortality in these aspirational districts. We have 1 in 5 maternal mortality. We have 1 in 4 infant stunting. How do you eliminate all of that? It can only happen when we provide access to innovation and entrepreneurship through enabling infrastructure, through incubators, through community innovation centers, which is what the Atal Innovation Mission is doing. We have set up over 100 Atal incubation centers across the country, out of which 1,500 startups with 500 women-led startups have already sprung up into existence in the last couple of years. And with the support of AICTE and Dr. Sahasrabudhe, who is going to expound on it further, you would know that this is reaching across to 1,000 universities and 1,000 incubation centers would bloom, out of which hundreds and thousands of startups and entrepreneurs will be fostered. We already are one of the fastest growing startup nations of the world. We have 55,000 startups in our country. 61 unicorns in the Global Innovation Index are attributed to Indian originated unicorns, out of which 34 of them are from India. Now, isn't that a wonderful thing? A young India, a student-led India, a youthful India, creating the entrepreneurs and the innovators of the future. The third pillar that the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned is the pillar of demand. We are a country of 1.3 billion people. We have demand like no one else has in the world. To satisfy the needs of the 600,000 cities, towns, villages, the 1,000+ town cities, 8,000 towns and cities, we need to fulfill the demand, not only of the consumer demand, but also the demand for electricity, for housing, for smart and affordable and clean drinking water and sanitation. We have a number of challenges, but every one of these challenges are opportunities for innovation. And that is why there is the tremendous focus on ensuring that innovation and entrepreneurship is booming across the country. The Atal Innovation Mission has set up more than 5,000 tinkering labs, and another 5,000 will be implemented in this next 6 months. We are on the course for setting up about 200 incubators. We are setting up community innovation centers in the rural part of India, so that places like Goa, how do you ensure that the tourism industry or the cashew nut industry or the shipbuilding industry or the mining industries of Goa get the benefits of innovation? And then we are also setting up challenges called Atal New India Challenges and Arise Challenges. These challenges are to stimulate the MSME industry as well as the innovators like Aditya, who are given challenges to create products and create solutions, not only for the COVID-19 crisis, but to also in a post-COVID-19 world. So my dear friends, this is your opportunity. We are living in a world dominated by technology. Technology is changing the face of the world. It is changing the way you are experiencing the world. It is changing the way the world is experiencing you. So you have a tremendous opportunity, an opportunity that I did not have when I was growing up. The first phone that I saw was in 1983. And that too, it was not a smartphone. A physical phone, a handheld phone, which my father and mother had to go to my neighbor's house in order to make a call to me when I was in New Zealand. That was in 1983, not very far ago. But you are living in a world where you have a computer in your pocket. Smartphones, we are one of the largest, fastest growing smartphone nations in the world, the user of the smartphone. We are having satellite communication technologies which are changing the way you are able to communicate, to reach across to any part of the world, from Salem to San Francisco, from Sikkim to Seattle. The world is at your feet. And therefore you have an opportunity to leverage technology to the hilt. Today, Aditya has organized a call where students from across the world are listening to all of us. Isn't that a marvelous thing? We never had any of this when we were growing up. So young kids who are out there, young innovators like Aditya, I exhort you, arise, awake, and stop not till the goal is reached. What do you arise? Arise with the boldness that you can change the world, with the confidence that you are the architects of the new world. Arise to create that, rouse that potential inside you. Awaken that innovative talent. Awaken that creativity that you have been blessed with right from the beginning of when you were born. You see, when we were born, we didn't know how to stand. We just saw the world around us. Nobody could speak to us. We looked at and we saw people standing. We stood up, we fell down. We stood up again, we fell down again. But every time you stood up, you innovated. And soon you were walking, soon you were running, soon you were winning races, soon you were participating in national competitions, soon you were participating in the World Olympics. Soon you have an Usain Bolt winning large competitions and setting the record in running. All of this is due to innovation. Innovation that is not only based upon your personal improvement, but innovation in products, in services, in process. So awaken that creativity and that potential that you have always had, and somehow you feel as you go through the educational system that you have lost. Awaken that creativity and stop not till the goal is reached. And what is the goal? The goal is socio-economic progress. The goal is not just your personal growth. The goal is when you create an impact. As this great Steve Jobs said, leave a ding in the universe. We want you, every one of you, to leave a ding in the universe. To leave in the ding in the universe means create innovations that will have impact, societal impact. Impact so that the world is better off because of you. You cannot be just an also ran in a race. You have to be one of those who are the winners. And the winners are the one who constantly strive for excellence and making an impact. Imagination leads to innovation. Innovations lead to impact. Impact lead to a ding in the universe. And when you leave a ding in the universe, you have become the change that you want to see. Thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to participate in this event and share a few thoughts. All the very best to every one of you. And do remember Gandhi in his various exhortations. He was the first to introduce the chakra, not as something that you need to perpetuate, but as an instrument of change, an instrument of self-reliance, an instrument of Atmanirbhar Bharat that we talk today in terms of modern technology and the ability for us to create a better world. So create a better world, and you can. Thank you so much. All the very best. God bless.
Thank you so much, Ramanan sir. That was truly inspiring for all these youngsters. And we've got a lot of youngsters who probably now started joining in very large numbers. Sir, before we progress and of course hear Dr. Sahasrabuddhe, we would want you to officially, and perhaps given that this is a huge student audience that we are catering to with Aditya being a schoolboy, we would want you as the flag bearer of innovation in schools in our country to officially dedicate and launch the World Student Innovation Summit and declare it open, sir.
Thank you so much for the honor, Giri and Aditya and Dr. Sandeep. I officially declare the World Student Innovation Summit open, and I do hope every one of you will participate in the innovation journey that is so very exciting and so very beneficial to everyone in the world.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot. And Dr. Pillai, who has joined us from South Africa, he has another session which he has to address, and he's got to drive 20 minutes to be there. He's, I think, got another location where he has to get into that. Thank you so much, Dr. Pillai, for being with us. Truly, truly appreciate your presence and the presence of South Africa through you at this conference. I think that was extremely important for us on Gandhi Jayanti to have an academic and a researcher from South Africa to set the tone for this conference. Thank you so much, Dr. Pillai, and to Mr. Ramanan for setting the WSIS open. Well, ladies and gentlemen, India's power is youth power. And if you do not channelize that in the right way, you can go in very many wrong directions. If there is one person who over the last 5-6 years has really brought in tremendous amount of focus into that movement, that one person arguably, and many people in academia would agree, would be Dr. Anil Sahasrabuddhe. As the chairperson of AICT and people like me who do numerous quizzes with thousands of institutes, always hear one name with a great amount of respect and reverence including from my friends at ASMA. Every time I speak to my friends at ASMA who are actually powering this entire program, they, almost every other conversation, I think they mentioned Dr. Sahasrabuddhe, the way he's not just fostered institutions, but also institutions around these institutions like ASMA, because it's not only the educational system, but the ecosystem around the educational institutes, which he's really lent a lot of credence to. A phenomenal academic, a person from IIT Guwahati as an alumnus, a beautiful institute that I love visiting when I do my traveling. He could have easily been a leader in the corporate world, but he chose to dedicate his life to the cause of youngsters and education. I do not want to stand between him and his time. He's taken time out from another talk that he had prior to this to join us. So the entire floor for him. Thank you so much, Dr. Sahasrabuddhe, for joining us. All yours, sir. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Dr. Bala. Good morning, everyone. It's very exciting time that just now I heard two of the great stalwarts, Dr. Andrews, as well as Dr. Ramanathan, who was so inspiring to our entire youth. I'm sure all the youth who have joined, whether school children to college students, I'm sure Ramanathan has been a constant source of inspiration for innovation. We have amongst us also Aditya Pachpande, ASMA, Rahul Jain, NEXTGEN INNOV8, and many others who have joined, including Gopal Krishnan, Doswami, and others. More importantly, and last but not the least, most important guy, Master Aditya, who has been an inspiration to the youth. He is an icon for all school-going children today, because at such an young age, he has started doing innovation, and not just innovation, but it is based on some of the things which already existed. And as rightly pointed out by Andreas, discovering something which exists, to inventing it, and then innovating it and bringing it to the market to create an impact. I think that's what he is doing. And I'm sure a little while later, we are going to have his Suraksha Box, a UVC-based sanitizer box, which is going to be so useful during these COVID times. Because we are all aware that the growth of COVID has been challenging to not only our country, but the entire globe. And therefore, any product which will make us come out of that is going to be very, very useful. And he rightly applied his knowledge, whatever he has earned from the school, from his own internet-based education. I'm aware that more than school, he has been learning outside, and he has been given talks all over the world. And that is what is required from our young students who are there in the schools and colleges. Coming back to very important aspect which Ramananji has already touched upon, how do we make our nation innovative? I think that is the task which Niti Aayog has been constantly doing, starting from the schools. And those Atal Innovation Mission labs, which are called tinkering labs, in 5,000 odd schools, and another 5,000 in coming 1 year, will really transform. More importantly, the National New Education Policy was unleashed on July 29th after the approval of the cabinet, and none other than Prime Minister himself spoke about this policy on multiple webinars. Very rarely does a Prime Minister speak about education policy, not once, twice, and he has been constantly speaking about the new national education policy as to how it is going to be empowering. And I will just touch upon few of the facets which are directly related with innovation. One of the things which Ramananji also touched upon was about our examinations. We have been constantly going through a sort of question papers from KG to PG. I often say KG to PG is all about rote learning. So you memorize something and then come and write it in the exam, score maximum marks. But in the next day itself, someone asks you, where do you apply? Where is it useful? What is this all about? They will say, neither the teachers told us, nor we tried to do it, or try to find out what it is all about. And that is where a difference has been made by Master Aditya. He did not leave at what schools were teaching him, but he always tried to understand what is the concept behind that, what is the foundation on which it is built, and where it can be applied, how it can be made utilizable by multiple people and reaching out to large number of population. I think that is what is the thinking which is required, which we call analytical ability, critical thinking, synthesis ability. I think these are not there in our examination question papers. And that is where the policy also talks about reforms in education, reforms in examination. And I'm very happy that AICT started this exercise 3 years ago. And we had a committee which was headed by one of the vice chancellors, and we have a policy which is called examination reforms policy. And the entire policy talks about how question papers can be having only 30% of memory-based questions. All 70% of the questions should be based on Bloom's taxonomy, whether it is in terms of understanding of the subject, fundamentals, going ahead with the analytical tools, analysis, synthesis, data analytics, and more important, creativity and innovation. I think how can you design such question papers? So we had hundreds of workshops that we have been conducting to train our faculty to design such question papers. Once that starts happening, right, from school to the high school to the colleges and universities, I'm sure people will start thinking. Thinking is more important, and also questioning. Many times we see in the colleges and universities that students don't even ask questions because they feel they will be snubbed. And that is where we need to change. Our ancient philosophy, Indian knowledge system, was always a part of not just listening, but also questioning. Every aspect was questioned. We know the story of Nachiketa. I'm sure we need to bring out new Nachiketas, new Adityas, who will ask a question. And then I know, Bala, you are the quiz master, so you ask questions to everyone else. But students should also ask questions to you and many others, including teachers, vice chancellors, heads of the departments. And when that starts happening, and when we do not know an answer, rather than giggling out, it is better to accept that I don't know this, and I will go and find out and then bring it back. And that honesty, integrity is also required amongst teachers. And that's why we have also innovated in terms of first time ever in higher education teacher certification program. We know that for schools and high schools, we require D.Ed and B.Ed, and there are scores of colleges of what standard, I don't want to speak about it, but there are institutions who train teachers in pedagogy. But I think at higher education level, to teach in a university, to teach in an engineering college, to teach in a medical school, we don't have any things like teacher training program. So what we have done is 8-module faculty certification program is evolved by the best in this field. Actually, all of them were excellent faculty members who innovated themselves in their own careers. And we find that most of the teachers, when they join, they will be asked to swim in the waters, which are very rough waters. And most importantly, I often see that in most of the colleges and universities, the first year large class where there are 200, 300 students is given to a young faculty who does not know how to do the teaching. And he is all getting what you know as aeroplanes, back into his backyard. And therefore, I think creating that teacher innovation was very, very important. And these 8 modules talk about how do you create a curriculum, how do you create a lesson plan, how do you interact with students, how do you use technology, how do you innovate and bring in value to the classroom, how do you do blended classroom, how do you create a question paper which is really challenging to the student. I think all of that, including what he needs to do in the whole life cycle of a teacher, including while he goes for promotion to the leadership, to the role of head of the department, dean, principal, director, vice chancellor. I think all of that is embedded in these 8 modules. And not leaving at that, the 9th module is making a faculty member to go to the industry, because today we have an internship which is mandatory for 6 months. But those who graduated earlier did not have this mandatory, and therefore going to industry for 4 weeks, finding out what exactly happens there and bring that value to the classroom. And start teaching for 1 semester under the tutelage guidance of some of the best faculty who will be your margadarshaks, who will be your mentors, who will be your philosophers, guide during that 1 semester. And if you perform well, only then you get certification. And then you become regular. Otherwise, you are contractual, you are temporary. I think this is a big ticket change which we have done 3 years back. And the policy talks about this aspect as well. So I think whether it is continuous curriculum revision, whether it is faculty training, whether it is values and ethics to be brought in, our another program which is called Universal Human Values Elective or compulsory course in a curriculum. And to train the teachers, we have another program for faculty development where we relate self with the society and society with the nation, nation with the entire environment and nature, and how we are to live symbiotically. And that is where today's day is very important. Today is 2nd October, the birth anniversary of the father of the nation, Mahatma Gandhiji, and also one of our prime ministers, Lal Bahadur Shastri. Both were absolutely simple in their lifestyles. Both, had Satya, Ahimsa, Siddhapan. These are three very cardinal principles which they all talked about. And today, our present Prime Minister also exactly follows that. Very simple life. He is a person who always talks about Atmanirbharta. Mahatma Gandhiji also talked about Atmanirbhar villages. And unless villages become Atmanirbhar, that is self-reliant, I don't think nation can become self-reliant. So the process should start from two verticals. One of them is from the bottoms up, that is from villages to the towns and cities. Ramananji talked about smart cities. Unless villages are also smart, smart cities will not come into existence. It's a very clear dichotomy, because if the villages are not empowered, if you don't have internet connectivity, if you don't have all the facilities that are required in the cities, also in the villages, there is going to be a migration which will constantly happen. The job opportunities, if they are not there in the villages, they will all migrate to the cities. And whatever we do, they will create slums, and the cities will never become smart. And therefore, we need to develop both villages as well as cities on one side, the entire nation, in terms of connectivity, internet facility, the transportation, energy, environment, education, healthcare. All these are very, very challenging problems for a nation of 1.35 billion population. And I'm sure once we start getting our students into the innovation cycle, these problems, maybe 1 billion problems, but we have 1.35 billion people actually. So this is peanut actually for us. We can solve these problems very easily. And our own experience, not only Tinkering Lab example, which Ramananji, AIC's Smart India Hackathon, which we started 4 years ago, has been a game changer. Problems of the government departments, from the state governments, from different industries, including startups to large scale industries, were given a challenge to undergrad students, second year, third year, for whom many a times industry says they are not employable in terms of various surveys by CII, NASSCOM, FICCI and all. But very same students, not even graduates, second year, third year, they came out with brilliant out of the box ideas. By bringing them onto the platform, 36 hours without sleeping, they worked on that, and the basic solution was provided. And that was further taken up by those industries or the government departments for actually implementation. So a student, if given an opportunity, there is a lot of talent which is there, and that talent exists in our system. We are born innovators, but we somehow were stifling that, and that has to be overcome. So the national new education policy, which gives a lot of liberal way of autonomy for institutions in terms of the curriculum, in terms of their own programs, in terms of multidisciplinary universities, in terms of lateral entry, exit anytime, so that people who are interested in particular program, when they come in and feel that they are not fit here, they can go out, credit banking. If there is any innovative education policy anywhere in the world, that was NEP 2020 by Dr. Kasturi Rangan and committee, and we are very lucky that Prime Minister himself is hand-holding and taking it forward. I am sure all our young kids, they are very lucky. We did not have so much fortune to study in an environment where technology is at our doorsteps. We have MOOCs courses of Swayam, our own platform, more than 2,500, 1.2 crore students are using it. 114 nations are watching our indigenous Indian MOOCs platform Swayam. I think there are lots of questions Bala can ask in the next quizzes actually in terms of what MHRD has been doing and now Ministry of Education is doing. But I think this is a time for empowerment through education, through healthcare. I think that is where the government is doing. Our Honorable Prime Minister started his first tenure with Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Digital India, Skill India, and followed it up with Make in India, Startup India. We have our own startup policy, and both Niti Aayog, Ramananji, and AICT, we are working closely, and we are bringing a sort of collaboration between colleges which are in the neighborhood of the schools where tinkering lab is established, so that there is a win-win situation. Some of the colleges do not have equipment which tinkering lab has, and tinkering lab, some of the students and faculty do not know how to use it. I think this matchmaking will really catapult both of them, and many innovations will start coming up, like what Aditya has done today. And with this few initial remarks, I appreciate the work that is being done by ASMA, NEXTGEN INNOV8, and all of you who are here on this platform. Let us encourage our youth. Let us give them challenge. Let us make them blossom. And that is what education is all about. That is what Swami Vivekananda said. Everyone is born with something, but unless we explore it, we support it, we mentor it, we don't bring it to the fore, I think we will not be able to do that. Thank you very much. Namaskar. Dhanyavad.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sahasrabuddhe. Really appreciate your presence here today. Well, certainly I have been asking a lot of questions on especially your hackathon that happened. I did have that in a couple of my quizzes. And at a forum like this where we've got thousands watching, I must share, a lot of leading corporates, in fact, told me the solutions our employees could not provide, these hackathons provided. As a neutral representative, I'm documenting the statement. It's a phenomenal idea. I think it was only the right opportunity in a constructive framework that had to be created. Truly appreciate creating that, sir. And we couldn't have found a better person than you as a flag bearer of innovation with the youth. We would request you to officially launch the Suraksha Box for Aditya and Mission 15.1K. Though Aditya in his simple school thinking says 15,100, we should probably try and add a zero to his requirements. But we would love you to dedicate that to the nation, sir.
Thank you, Bala. So it is wonderful to really, sort of launch this very important during the COVID times, Suraksha Box or Suraksha Kit developed by Master Aditya. And why 15,100? You are right, not 10. A zero was invented by Indians only. So let us add as many zeros as possible and make it to reach not just nooks and corners of our own country, but the entire globe. Let us flood it with that. With this, I appreciate the work that he has been doing. Congratulations to him, and more laurels to be brought to him in the process of this innovation.
Well, in his own inimitable way, Dr. Sahasrabuddhe has set a target for us now. Well said, sir. So well said. I think it is limitless for us. Truly well said. Let me now bring in Dr. Sandeep, who's really been a flag bearer of this entire movement.
You have to show the kit actually now.
Yes, we are doing that, sir. We just heard that the minister is unable to join us right now. So, Sandeep, if you could just clarify on that, and then we can move forward.
Yes, unfortunately, the minister is traveling on an urgent assignment, so he cannot come live. However, he did call me up in the morning, and he has given me a message, which he has asked me to quote. So, Tanujit, if you can put it up on the screen. But before I go to it, it's such an amazing feeling. Thank you to everyone. We are blessed and privileged to have such an overwhelming support from all over the world for WIS, which is presented by NEXTGEN INNOV8 in association with ASMA. As a father, it's such a proud and emotional moment for me to see your son outsmart yourself and being known as his father. So that's extremely proud, and it's such a proud feeling to see him not only start a company, but a social non-profit venture and contribute during this crisis and the pandemic. I'm here very happy and privileged to read the quote from Sri Sanjay Dhotreji, a Union Minister for State, Communications, Electronics and Information Technology, Government of India. I quote the message from the Honorary Minister. Dear young friends, let me begin wishing all of you a very happy Gandhi Jayanti. It gives me great pleasure to wish WSIS 2020, the World Student Innovation Summit, all success. I'm particularly happy to note that in line with the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, and his call for an Atmanirbhar Bharat, young Aditya has created an innovative solution, do-it-yourself UVC sterilization kit called the Suraksha Box to tackle the pandemic. Delighted to note that in this young age, Aditya has got the Government of India patent published, and the Suraksha Box is approved and recommended certification by CSIR-CMERI ICMR Approved Lab, Government of India. The Ministry of Education is happy to support World Student Innovation Summit and its mission of donating 15.1K COVID-19 Suraksha boxes to the needy families, schools on the event of Gandhiji's 151st birthday. All the best to you. Thank you. Namaskar. Unquote. Over to you, Giri.
Well, thank you so much to our minister for sending in that message. I think we can have the video, as Dr. Sahasrabudhe rightly said. If one of you could play that, and then we'll move to our next speaker. I also see a lot of leading school academics joining us. I can see a proud principal smiling as well at the moment of his student.
Bala, I
Yes, sir.
want to interrupt a bit, and
Yes, sir.
I'd like to congratulate Dr. Sandeep Pachpande. The reason is, at many times, at homes, when young children come out with some interesting ideas and all that, we always snub them and say that first concentrate on your studies, do well in your examination, and then let us look at it later. And we need parents like Sandeep, and that is why it's very important that our parenting is very, very important to support such innovations from the school times, from the homes, and our teachers too, instead of snubbing students that, you first concentrate on your studies and exam. If there is an innovative idea, we want to allow students to take even possibly break for 1 year, experiment it, let them fail also, doesn't matter. Let us celebrate failure, let them do something else later. Otherwise, we will not generate Adityas of the world and the Edisons of the world. Thomas Alva Edison failed several times before electric bulb was invented.
True, doctor. In fact, the first question I asked Dr. Sandeep was, which school does he study in? Which has allowed him the room to innovate, the room to do these things. It's true. It's true. The school that he is in, the home that he comes from has fostered this. And we're trying to make this a much larger replicable movement and not confine it to the few Adityas. So true, sir. If we can have the video, friends.
I'll just make a suggestion to Dr. Sandeep.
Yes, sir.
We have been trying to encourage Atal Tinkering Lab students across the country. But one of the important things is the parents also need to be educated on how to enable risk-taking by the children, how to recognize the innovative potential. So maybe he can create a parents' awareness movement because he is himself encouraged his young son. And that is going to be very useful, and we'll be happy to support him in that sort of initiative. Thank you very much, sir, for both your suggestions. Definitely we'll go ahead and we are going to do that. And at the same time, I'm very happy to tell you, sir, that Aditya School, Indus International School, has probably launched the first of its kind of initiative in the world of having entrepreneurship school started right from 8th standard in their school. So we have Deepak Chavra, sir, here with us, who would be talking about the initiative in the session.
Oh, very nice. Okay, do we have the video? Can we play it?
Just allow a second.
कि हम इसे चुनते हैं to protect you A revolutionary step towards safety against coronavirus. ग्राहक हमें चुनते हैं क्योंकि हम इसे चुनते हैं. To protect you and your loved ones. मैं करूं मेरे मरीजों की सुरक्षा, मेरी रक्षा करे सुरक्षा बॉक्स. A unique way of safety that also saves time. अब सैनिटाइज ये करता है और रिलैक्स मैं करता हूँ. Government of India MC&I patent published, approved and recommended certification by CSIR-CMERI, Government of India. A breakthrough in safety by child prodigy Aditya Pachpande. Suraksha Box, a non-profit social venture towards the safety of our society. Here's the easiest way to sanitization. Sanitization का सबसे सरल तरीका. Keep the objects to sanitize in the box. Close it and switch it on. After 10 to 15 minutes, switch it off and take out the sanitized objects. Safe to use. From shops to homes, offices to libraries, schools to restaurants, delivery services to vendors. This is the need of the hour for everyone. So go ahead and take your smart step to safety. Get Suraksha Box for yourself and your loved ones. And gift one to someone in need, because this Gandhi Jayanti, we have embarked on a mission to celebrate the 151st birth anniversary of the father of our nation by making these Suraksha boxes reach 15.1 thousand needy people. So come forward and help us get one step closer to our mission of donating 15.1 thousand Suraksha boxes. As in today's times, the gift of safety is the most treasured gift of all. Suraksha Box, Suraksha ka var, Corona ki har.
I think I was mute. That's really nice. Congratulations, Aditya, from all of us. Good wishes and blessings to you for a wonderful future. Really inspiring to see Dr. Pillai, Andres, Dr. Sahasrabuddhe and Ramanan sir, all of them lending their perspectives